Hello, hello, hello. It's been a while. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Good Advice Podcast. This is a place where we talk all the things you need to know to grow your business in a tangible and meaningful way. Got a little update on the brand, update on the business. Before we dive in, here's a quick ad. We'll be back soon. There's one single piece of advice that I give to business owners who are ready to scale their business drastically. And that's knowing exactly what you need to hand off so that you can continue focusing on what you're an expert in. It amazes me when I talk to business owners who are doing their own bookkeeping and tax prep, and worse, that they're going through all this paperwork at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, even midnight, slaving away trying to make sense of all of the numbers for their business. Business owners who are making it happen have already figured out that you can't do it all yourself. That's why I recommend Steve Lay with Equity Business Solutions. Not only is he an expert in bookkeeping and tax prep, but what I love about Steve is that he'll sit down with you and help you make sense of the value of your business beyond just reading a spreadsheet. You'll be able to make better decisions, and more importantly, you're going to save yourself the crucial time you would have spent going through QuickBooks or an Excel spreadsheet or whatever it is that keeps us up late at night. So save yourself some time and some money by giving Steve Lay a call at Equity Business Solutions, and he'll show you the value beyond your numbers. Go to equitybusinesssolutionsllc.com to find out more. All right, a little bit's changed since the last time I did a podcast episode. I have a new baby now in the world. So typically we post 2 or 3 times a week and haven't updated an episode in a couple of weeks. Was enjoying life without work, I guess. And here I am again, back to work. But we had our third baby. She's adorable. She's great. And I enjoyed some really great time with the fam. And it's all been good. It's been good. We've had a lot of great community support. People who brought us so many snacks and so much food. And also people who brought snacks for my other 2 kids, which I thought was kind of thoughtful. But anyway, it's been a good past 2 weeks. But here I am again to talk about the podcast, talk about some things that have been going on, some updates that I haven't really been able to share fully in detail. But main topic of discussion today is how good advice is evolving and changing in a good way. So I think I talked about this a little bit on my last episode, but basically the news, if you haven't seen it or heard about it, is I bought a marketing company that was official as of June 1st. There's a lot to unpack with this. Some of it's not really all that interesting. And then for other people who maybe you're growing a business, maybe there's some interesting insights there for you to think about. But long story short, Good Advice as a brand has really been looking for more done-for-you services. It's been looking for ways to expand our services. A perfect conversation would be like I was in a sales conversation a few months ago where I was talking to a guy who was starting a business, and he has deep experience in the business world. We were chatting about getting some help for his business, and he basically said, hey, well, I feel really good from the consultative side of things. I feel really good on the strategy side of things. What else do you offer? Like, what else can you help me with? And in that conversation, I was able to say, yeah, well, we have some marketing services that we can do for you. And he was like, great, let's talk about that. Previously, though, going back to the past 6-7 years of Good Advice, either someone wants consultative help or they don't. It's a fairly niche offer. It's not an inexpensive offer. You have people who are offering consulting advice who, charge $100. And in my case, I mean, the price it has grown and changed so much in the last 7 years, but from $2,000 to $5,000 to $7,500 to $9,000, there's quite a bit of a buy-in that isn't easy to digest if you are a small business owner. So expanding Good Advice and growing our offer, growing our services has been something on my mind for a while now. just to bring in more cash and just grow the business in more in faster ways, with an offer that isn't quite so um, heavy-handed isn't the right word, but top heavy, I guess, from an investment standpoint. So, all that to say, I had a friend of mine who was looking to get out of the marketing world, who we were talking about his business, and I made an offhand comment that was, "Hey, if you ever be willing to sell your business, I'd love to talk about it." And this was probably maybe 6 months ago. And he was like, "No, no, I don't think I'd ever want to sell it." And I was like, "Okay, sounds good." Well, then, funny enough, a few months after that, he was like, "Hey, actually, I think I think I do want to sell it. I think I do want to get out of this, and my professional endeavors have changed. I'm looking to do something else. Are you still interested in selling it, or excuse me, in buying it?" And we went back and forth on that for a few months, and then finally, I had some terms that I was pretty keen on. He had some things that he was pretty keen on, and finally, end of May of 2025, we basically got on the same page, and he was like, "Let's do this thing." And it happened very quickly, happened in about a week, maybe even less actually. But June 1st, it was official. I bought his marketing agency. I inherited about 50 customers, I guess, and 50 websites. And yeah, it's been interesting. It's been very interesting. It's interesting because my first priority was to keep as many customers of his that I could. People often get very apprehensive and nervous whenever a company is sold, because you ask yourself, what's that going to mean for my service? Who's this person? Am I still going to get the same service that I've always gotten? Which, this individual who sold me the business, he and I are very like-minded in that we have a similar approach to business. There was never a concern or worry about someone not getting the same service, but there's absolutely a process to all of this of reaching out to customers, reaching out to people. And I reached out to every single customer, and this is just very intrinsically true to me. It's not how I do business in the way of, I don't do like a copy paste, hello, greetings, I am the new owner. It was an individual message. I looked at each business. I got familiar with each business. Okay, this is a dumpster service out of whatever state. Okay, this is a marketing agency. Okay, this is a, um, you know, uh, now I'm trying to talk about one particular business that all of a sudden I'm thinking, I don't know, an IT company. I couldn't think of the words for it. I was like, I'm giving this example and I can't think of what this is actually called. So, reaching out to individual business owners, reaching out to their owners, introducing myself, that's all been a pretty tedious process. Not tedious, time consuming. It hasn't been tedious. It's been time consuming, but it's also the way that I like to do business is just, starting with the relationship first, face to the name, hello. And I'm happy that we've only lost one customer in that whole process. One customer who was very unhappy with the business sale and very uncomfortable with, the handoff and all this stuff. And so, but knock on wood, so far we've kept every other customer, and my hope is to try to keep as many as possible. I think churn just happens naturally. I think people just, especially when people have been looking at competitors, they've been looking at other offers. I think that people just transitions like this serve as natural points to try something else or do something else. So I've tried to do a good job with staying connected with those customers, staying connected with those people, and giving them just assurances around the same quality that they've expected previously. Having said that, it has changed my day to day quite a bit. Um, I'm hiring part of this company. They do marketing, they do mostly SEO, but they also do web development. Think about the code that goes on a website and tweaking and changing and revising certain things in terms of web functionality. I am hiring a developer for that. I have other people that I'm working with that, just trying to get everyone up to speed. So all that to say, my time has really been, I don't know if refocused is the right word, but I just came out of this paternity leave. I still have my good advice customers. I have a whole bunch of more new customers now. And I'm just trying to make sure that I'm doing a good job with the customers I already have and delivering on the promises that I've made with those people. What this means for you as the average listener to the podcast, or maybe you're a first time listener, which if you are a first time listener, hello, welcome. And I'll give a little tidbit, some advice that I kind of teased towards the start of the episode, but I'll get to that here in a second. If you are looking for marketing help for your business, I'd love to give you a hand. We really play in a few different areas. First of all, WPMP, WordPress Maintenance Plan, is the company that I bought. And they specialize, or rather, we specialize in hosting and managing your website on a month to month basis at $59 a month. And we handle uptime, we handle security, we handle making sure updates for your plugins and all those things are happening. And it's not just WordPress, but it can work for Squarespace and Wix or whatever other websites platforms you might use for your business. But we handle all of that. You never have to worry about is my website up? Is it working? Is it functioning? Is there any kind of security issue there? We handle all of that again at $59 a month. Then from there, we have the marketing services, which is all SEO oriented, SEO organic, focused on getting you real customers, getting you people to your website, getting people to your Google business profile. All of that is encapsulated in that service as well. We don't do any paid ad campaigns. We don't do any branding. We don't do any logo, anything like that. We're not a design agency. It's purely marketing, getting people to your website, getting people interacting with your brand so that then you can sell them, convert them, make more money, etc. So if you're in a position that you're trying to grow your business, you're trying to find something else, maybe you've been doing something that hasn't been working, please feel free to reach out and email me, and I'd love to tell you more. So we have a no contract offer. I think it's $4.99 a month, and cancel whenever you want if you decide it's not working for you, or you decide maybe you're getting too many customers and you're like, I got to slow this thing down. I'm being a little facetious here, right? Cancel anytime. And then we have a annual plan that's $12.50 a month. That has quite a bit more that goes into it. And there are some guarantees around that, like getting you to page 1 on Google, things like that. So you can always reach out if you want to know more information. I'm at blake@goodadvicecoaching.com, or blake@goodadvicemarketing.com, or blake@wpmaintenanceplan.com. And unfortunately, I have to have all these emails because I wanted to keep the brand name to not lose those customers. I'm keen to keep back in the day when I was doing like leadership and management consulting and just like training with teams. Change is just very difficult for people. It's hard for it to be palatable, even for like the most resilient people. People just do not like change. They just really do not like change. And so anytime you can make the process of change as pain-free and subtle as possible, it's to your advantage. So I didn't want to lose the brand name. I didn't want to lose I inherited that business's payment processing, and I didn't want to change that over to mine. I just kept it because, again, I didn't want to have to ask for like new credit card informations or new, sign up over here or whatever. Just try to make it as pain-free as possible. But keep it to my word. I did say I was going to give some advice if you're a smaller business owner. Maybe you're under 100K and you're just thinking about, how do I really grow this business and grow this thing? Generic advice that's a little bit unrelated to my situation is you got to always be selling. You have to always be selling your services. You got to be talking about your services. You got to be thinking about, how many people am I going to meet in a day who could be a prospective buyer of mine? And if you're not engaging with a number of people who could be your customer in a given day, you are in serious trouble. And if it is, that's probably too dramatic. You're not in serious trouble. You're probably okay. But point being, if you're trying to hit a certain revenue number and you talk to someone who's a buyer of yours maybe once every couple of weeks, there's a disconnect there. right? So you want to think about that and think about how often am I talking to people. But separately, you want to think about how much work, have an honest perspective on how much work that you have set up for yourself to get your next sale, to get your first customer, and to grow your business. So here's what I mean by this is when I started Good Advice, I really thought I was the only one who did business consulting. I didn't really think that, but I thought, yeah, it's me and like one other person. And then like that first like month or two in the digital world, I realized, holy cow, there are so many people out here who sell consulting services for any number of things, not just for business, but just like you think about coaches too, like mindfulness coaches and financial coaches and all these different things. It's just it's not good. There's so many people out there. So then my second thought was like, well, I have all these certifications. I have like ten to $15,000 worth of certifications, and then I had to realize, actually, the average buyer doesn't care about those things. So it's actually not a differentiator that you think it is. And I mentioned that one particularly because I've mentioned this a few times on the podcast of when I talk to new business owners, I'll usually ask, hey, what's special about your business? What's special about your brand? And I get hit with things like, oh, we really care about our customers. We really care about customer service. And none of those things are compelling for your buyer because everyone thinks that way. And everyone thinks that their business is doing things the best way that it can be done. So having a real honest perspective with yourself in terms of how much of an uphill climb do I have to get to my next sale. And so let's think about it. Let's think about it from my perspective with Good Advice. Guy in his early 30s, not a mega millionaire, has never grown a seven-figure business, and who, worked for a consulting company who's now in a sea of other consultants trying to sell a certain offer. The there's not a lot on a pro con list. There's not a lot of pros there. Now, fortunately, sticking to the podcast over the years, doing this 6, 7 years and having such a large foundation now of business content and being immersed in business and studying business and I've worked with so many customers now, given advice to hundreds, if not thousands of people. Nowadays it is so much less of a tilted towards con scenario. But for like a brand new business owner, I mean, you got to be honest with yourself, right? So I think about the aspiring business owner who's like, I'm quitting my job and I'm going to become a realtor. And I think, okay, you are going to become a realtor. Do you like meeting people? No, I don't like meeting new people. Do you like social outings? No, I don't. Do you like sales? No, I don't. Okay. Do you have like a social media profile that has some umph to it? No, I don't. Okay. How many competitors do you have? I mean, probably the only realtor who's really going to go to bat for my buyer or my seller. Okay, buddy. Understanding that in Northwest Arkansas alone, you have, I think the number is like 3,000 other realtors that you're competing with. So I think the takeaway here is wherever you are in your business, wherever you are in your brand, you have to have a really honest take on what is a differentiator for you and what's really moving the needle forward. Um, and in my case with Good Advice, I needed more. I needed more. I needed some more services. I needed some done for you options. And for me, this isn't like for you, if you're a realtor, you need to also become a plumber. Like it has to make sense. Like I've given so much marketing advice over the years and have done so much marketing work with people in advising them and collaborating with them and directing them that for me, it was a really natural, it made sense. Like it was a great coupling that happened here. In the same way for you, it doesn't mean you need to necessarily change your offer, but you should think about how heavy do you have to push this cart to get it over the hill? And then how heavy do you have to push it again over the next hill for the next sale? And have a really honest conversation with yourself on what that looks like. And if it's not working, or it's too tedious or too insurmountable, you might want to tweak your business or change your business or burn the ships and do something different, or, or in my case, buy a business. And I definitely wonder, am I financially ruining myself here? This is definitely the most adult decision that I've made so far. So anyhow, that's kind of the long and short of it. Again, content-wise, nothing's really going to change. It's just, we're still going to talk about the same stuff on the podcast. Still going to talk about business advice. I'll mention probably the marketing services every now and then. We do still have the Podcastable, the podcast service. That's not going anywhere either. It's still a great business too. So it is interesting seeing how Good Advice has really grown and expanded over the last few years, from business consulting to now marketing services to podcasting services. In my mind, it all ties together. It's all, mediums in terms of how you grow your business and grow your brand. But all that to say, I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for where the business is going. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a long time, thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. But yeah, we're back to our normal schedule, back to work now. And I'm looking forward to lots of good advice to share. Thank you for listening. That's today's Good Advice. See ya.